Hey, folks, it's Lindsey Huddleston with SPS back in the building. You're looking at the squad. That's right. The SPS Edge Show. We got my co-host, Terry McCord Jr. We got John, the insider, as well as Orlando Watkins. Always great to see you guys. And boy, do we got a lot of good stuff to talk about. Sports has left a lot of meat on the bone for us to talk about a number of things going forward. I want to put some things out there. We're going to talk about the Juwan effect. I'm trying to coin this term, guys, see if it can pick up. One man Dawkins took one of my questions. He talked about on ESPN. Maybe ESPN to pick up on that too. Right on time. That's right. Want to talk about is Juwan Howard's success, and we'll call whether he gets past the Sweet 16 in Florida State, get an NCAA championship. Regardless, we'll call this season a success. Him being a Big Ten tournament champ. A Big Ten regular season champ. Will the Juwan effect be part of a new wave of black head coaches? We just saw Ben Jones getting a spot over at Minnesota. We'll talk about that. The question that's been posed nationally in the national media is the Big Ten overrated or underperforming? And that'll be a question we can pose here today. And we'll go through each Big Ten team. We'll also talk about the issue that grabbed headlines between Coach Tom Izzo and Gabe Brown. As Draymond Green says, that's just Michigan State being Michigan State, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. And finally, we're in on referees behaving badly. My guy Keith Guy over at Muskegon High School, championship coach, he got pushed by a referee, and it was on video. MHA responded swiftly. The guy was suspended for the remainder of the season, and they're also the prosecutors bringing charges. We'll talk about that, especially in the wake of people talking about how bad parents are treating referees, but here you have a referee behaving badly. So with that, how's the gang doing right now? How's everybody doing?
Good here.
Everybody's doing good, man. Think about it, man. A year ago, we were shutting down everything. I was approximately this time a year ago, I was in Indianapolis. It was the Big Ten tournament getting started. And I went down there, man, and we heard the announcement that things were shut down because it was only media allowed. And within a few hours, I was back on the road heading home. Now a year has passed, and fortunately, people out here are getting their COVID shots. People are trying to keep things in order. Terry, did I see you partying for spring break down in Florida with no mask on? Did I see you down there? Okay, I saw you or whatever. Here we go. So with that being said, let's start with the Juwan effect. I pose this question to you guys, and I'll go in order. I'll start with youth. I'll start with Terry. And I work my way back to John and Orlando. I want to get you to give a thought on that. But I believe that it's not to say that Michigan hasn't had a black head coach. You had Tommy Amaker before. Who was the gentleman prior to that? I'm looking at his face. Brian Ellaby. Thank you, John. So it's not that Michigan hasn't had that. But in this particular case, with Juwan's, stunning success in a very short amount of time, I'm wondering if you're going to start seeing, instead of it being middle-aged white men who hold the coaching reins, they're going to start moving to, hey, let's find a guy who got some NBA experience. Let's find a guy who's an alum, someone we can connect with, something like that. Terry, you're on mute, but you're up right now. Tell me what you think about the Juwan effect and the possibility of it being a real thing.
I think he set a standard. I would say that he set a standard for black coaches, along with Leonard Hamilton, who is at Florida State at the moment, Kevin Ollie, who is at UConn, when he had those runs with Shabazz Napier. But, I mean, he set a standard for black coaches coming up. And I think that I like that with him and guys like Ben Jones at Minnesota, they're alumni. I was talking to Lindsey earlier this week, talking about how important it is for players to coach at their college that they went to or school that they went to. So it's a different kind of pride. You can't really beat that pride that someone's going to have of coaching their former school. And so I think that's very key. And I think Juwan, there have been a lot of talks of him maybe leaving. I don't think he's leaving. I think I think this is his dream job. He gets to go where he had a ton of success, bring that Michigan program, at a high level. Beeline had him at a high level, but now they're playing defense. They're getting rowdy. They're getting that Michigan arrogance that everybody hates on this call, but hey, it's there. But, I mean, he's definitely took this culture. He has 5 McDonald's All-Americans coming next year. Michigan basketball is going to be here for a while, and he's definitely set that standard for new coaches and new youth coming up. He's going to be the face of he's going to be that Coach K of this next generation coming up.
I like that, John. As I get ready to go to you, you help us a lot because of your wisdom, just an experience, and this is not trying to take any shots at you or whatever or not, because you've just been around, you've seen it, you've experienced it. So, black coaches is nothing new, but I want to talk about seeing a wave, like a trend, and more, and also too what that means for recruiting, because I know you know about being out there, being in those sweaty gyms, and what it means when, in so many cases, you've had this top-rated assistant coach like a DJ at Michigan State, for example, who's just known for being one of the best recruiters, but actually giving that assistant coach, if you will, the head coach title, where they got the full keys to the program. So want to get your thoughts on that as we talk about this Juwan effect, John.
Well, Lindsey, first of all, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that when I coached college basketball, I was an assistant for two black head coaches who were two of only seven black coaches in NCAA Division I. And one of my father's great friends, Will Robinson, was the first. So I go back to the beginning.
The legendary Will Robinson. The legendary Will Robinson.
Absolutely. But when it comes time to Juwan Howard, I had a chance to watch him like a lot of people. And what's he been? He's been a premier basketball since he's 15 years old. He's 49 years old now, I believe. So what basketball doesn't this guy know? What hasn't he seen? There is nothing that he hasn't seen. Now he has the charisma, he has the insight, he has the intellect to go hire a good staff around him. He's at the University of Michigan. They can go around the world. It's a perfect setup for him. Now, when it comes time to other people, I'm just going to tell you one quick little anecdote. I was coaching at Eastern Michigan, and we were playing Toledo, and it was halftime. And I went to Jim Boyce. I was his assistant, and I said, look, we got a full court press these guys. He said, no. I said, Coach, we got to make this a 94-foot game. He said, no. I shut up. I went and sat down. We lost. He came up to me after the game, and he said, come here. He said, you wanted me to press him. You were right. You were 100% right. But he said, you know all them white guys that hired me? You know what they would say? Oh, look at them. There's 5 black kids out here playing like they're a PSL team. I can't be like that. Now I'm going to tell you, you want to talk about a hard job? These guys put up with crap that these guys don't have to put up with today. Now, Juwan Howard, I think he is going to do a great job. He's at the right place. And if people are smart, they're going to look, the best qualified guy gets the job. And there's so many of these young black coaches who you see as assistants right now who have played since they were teenagers, been through the AAU, got relationships. Maybe they played in Europe. Maybe they played in the NBA. Man, you got to give these guys a shot and give them the chance to do the job that they love this game. Give them a shot. I would rather have somebody who's worked hard to get where they are, to get a job, than someone who's riding coattails like Lon Kruger's son at UNLV. They've had 14, 15 coaches since Shark left. Well, just because you haven't hired the right guy, you haven't found anybody who's got the passion that wants to stay there. And look how many of those 15 are black coaches. How about none?
Wow. I mean, and we had just talked about last week with Rich Pitino taking on a job in New Mexico within 24 hours before his coffee got cold. You got a shout out just a second ago, John. I think it was George Duncan son of George Baby Duncan, is on. He's shouting you out. He said he was there. I want to thank Orlando for making our sponsors promote it. The Horatio Williams Foundation, Dick's Sporting Good, as well as the Gilead Sciences. And if you notice my drink right here, I'm drinking ginger ale. I don't want you guys to think I got some Peroni or something going on over here. I know everybody was smiling, but no, I appreciate what you're saying with that. Just last night, Orlando, I was on with new PSL championship coach George Ward from King High School. You know, he always has some great points to make. So I'm just curious to know, Orlando, for you, when you think about what John just shared as far as that coach, but also on that recruiting trail, man, you know, and how hard it can be, to John's point of you know, that double standard. Because when I was talking to George, he said, look, man, those wins got to be big wins. There's no room for, you know, not being successful, because if you do, what happens is you become a permanent assistant coach. You get that one shot. For example, Juwan Howard is playing up against his mentor, Leonard Hamilton. And then in the article, it said, yeah, his coach and mentor. I said, coaching? When? Well, guess what? Leonard Hamilton was a coach for the Washington Wizards in Juwan's last season. But guess what? Leonard Hamilton was only the coach for one season. One season in the NBA. Now, true indeed, he's the head coach of Florida State and probably will be there until he decides to move on or whatever may happen. But to John's point, you know, it's like, damn, he got 1 year in the league and that was it. Now, he may have chosen to say, you know what, I'm good with the NBA. But still, though, you just don't see that. Want to know what your thoughts are, Orlando?
No, actually, I didn't get a chance to check out your Ward interview, but I mean, coaching is a grind. I mean, right now to see Jerron in the position where he is, it's just, for me, it's a happy transition or transgression of things. You put me behind John, it's hard to follow John.
I won't do that no more.
But it's a point that it's good to see these coaches coming back to their alumni. It's good to see that we're getting a crop of younger coaches that know the game, that experience and can communicate to these kids. I think you're seeing the transition to seeing more and more African-American coaches, because they need to put the coaches in that can actually identify and communicate and can relate to the majority of these kids that are playing. Whoa. And I think that is absolutely crucial, because coaching, and I've been in Northwestern 20 years. It is a chore nowadays to relate. I don't consider myself an old guy. I feel like it now, because it is such a struggle to really kind of understand, communicate, and really touch these kids nowadays.
I get it. You know, it's ironic as we get ready to go to the next topic, and I appreciate what you guys shared on this. Is the Big Ten, you know, overrated or underperforming? But check this out. Right now, Juwan Howard is carrying the Big Ten on his shoulders. Not just the University of Michigan, but Juwan Howard, we go take your banners down. Juwan Howard, y'all shorts too baggy. Juwan Howard, y'all messed up the game. He's carrying not only Michigan, he's carrying the entire Big Ten on his back right now to get him some credibility, meaning all them top-seeded rankings that everybody gave him were coming into question. And now Juwan Howard, in this second season, if you will, is carrying the Big Ten. I find it ironic, and I'm kind of pissed now that I think more about it, that he's not even getting the right kind of accolades, because if he goes down, the Big Ten gonna be sitting at the bus. So I pose this question. I'll change up the lineup so you don't got to go behind John, Orlando. I'll let you start off. I go to Orlando, Terry. We'll finish with Big John, that is. So what do you think, Orlando? Is the Big Ten overrated or underperforming?
I think at this point they're underperforming. I think a lot of the things that we're into the big dance, we're into the tournament, but we and which is a great thing that helps us forget COVID. But let's remember COVID and all of the things that it's brought before us. I think at this point, I think it's just a point of underperforming. The things that all of these teams have gone through this year have been overwhelming. And I think, as a bunch of Big Ten fans sitting here talking, we expected a lot more, but I think we need to understand that to get to the point that they did was a monumental task within itself.
Yeah, those top rankings are more than a notion. As Terry, I get ready to bring you in. You look at Abilene Christian beating Texas. You look at all these schools that weren't on people's radar. Loyola, though they got their Final Four chops. Beating the Illini. Was it Oregon that beat Iowa, whatever, whatnot. So you got all these programs that wasn't on anybody's radar throughout the regular season, if you will, and they stayed to the ground. They did it. Maybe it was just too much pressure on these guys at the end. Terry, what do you think?
Now, I would say along with that pressure, I'm sure conferences and throughout the year we're hearing, the Big Ten's the best conference, and hearing that everywhere else is a cakewalk. The Big Ten is where it's at. I think the Big Ten, kind of beat up on each other a little bit, during the regular season in the Big Ten tournament. But a guy on Twitter, I give him his props, Ant Wright. I follow him a lot. He really mentioned something that I think is very key, and he talked about how the Big Ten, because of their league and how and their play style, they don't really get a chance to see other play styles. And so a lot of that they weren't able to really see because of those tournaments like Maui, Battle of Atlantis, not a larger non-conference slate of games. MSU having that Champions Classic, the Champions Tournament, they were able to play it, but it's a different environment, the different play. It's all about matchups. And so when you got a team like Iowa that's going against a team like Oregon, who's going to run you up and down and let Luka get his, but not let anyone else score and just outplay you and outrun you. But you got a team like Alabama who's gonna beat you down in the inside, but still give you some great guard play on the outside and limit Maryland to just being a straight shooting team, which they do well at. I don't think the Big Ten was used to seeing all these different kind of play styles because they're used to the grit and grind kind of play style that you see out of Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota. Ohio State was a little more finesse this year than I liked, but they were probably the closest to it. But Illinois, Kofi Cockburn in the middle, beating them down. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with matchups. The Big Ten did not get favorable ones. Illinois and Loyola really shot them out the gym. They played great defense. It had to do with the matchups. That's why they're underperforming.
I like that point. I want to keep you there for a second, Terry, before I go to John. So if that's the case, and I know that wasn't your theory, but you picked up on it, it sounds valid. Does that mean it's only a matter of time before Michigan goes down, and that could be this matchup with Florida State because they're a different type of style. They're a long team. You got somebody who has some insight on Juwan Howard. It's a little bit more personal because what I'm trying to figure out is why is Michigan still standing? Are they just an anomaly based on Juwan Howard's coaching style? What do you think?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with coaching. I think, like we mentioned before the show, the maturity of Mike Smith, Shawnee Brown, Hunter Dickinson. He's the guy that's a freshman that's playing like a sophomore or junior. He's playing well beyond his years. But I think that the reason why they may lose to Florida State, which I picked them to lose, is because Michigan has had trouble with bigger guards. I think we've seen that across the country where larger guards are playing point guard. I mean, I think that's like a generational thing. Like we're seeing LaMelo, Lonzo, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Suggs, 6'4", 6'3". We're seeing bigger point guards, bigger body style of point guards. So I think Florida State really does well on the perimeter guarding against smaller guards because they're able to box them in and pass them over to people and help defense. But I think that that's something that matchups will play a big factor for Florida State when they match up in game plan for Michigan because it's something that Michigan hasn't really seen until they played LSU, which gave Mike Smith some trouble. I think Florida State, could capitalize on that.
Yeah, and as I get ready to bring John in, I want to say that Leonard Hamilton is due for his, man. Leonard Hamilton been grinding for a while, and I remember last season before everything shut down, he had that close one with Duke. I mean, he's always been out there, and it's like he's due for his, and he has an excellent assistant coach whose name I'm going to make sure I get and recognize. They say he's a rising star, one of his assistant coaches, because he's excellent at recruiting him. But right now we might have to change the name of the podcast to the John and Company show because I'm getting comments from George Duncan. He's saying, first, John, do you remember Michael Peterson, a running back at Demi in the mid to late 60s, who also played at Mumford? And he also wanted to make sure he said that before we got off the air, he wanted to be known that John was a great player, coach, and referee. So we got a lot of topics. And finally, want to thank Deborah Young for shouting out Orlando saying go coach. But to that being said, let's get back to the man right now, John. First of all, do you remember that name, Michael Peterson, the running back from Denby, who also played in? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, it comes back. So what are you thinking? Underperforming or overrated? What do you think about that right now?
Well, I would like to segue into what Terry said. And
he set it up real good, didn't he? Don't he set it up real good?
He put it on the tee. And I'll go to Illinois and Loyola. One of Illinois' mainstays is the guard Tsumu. And one of the premier things is giving him a ball screen. So what does Loyola do? They bum rush him. They double team. They say, oh, no, not today. So they took everything away with Tsumu. They said, you're not going to beat us today. Coach Underwood, who I think is a very good coach, had no answer. Yeah. In these games, in the NCAA tournament, you got to go on the fly. You got to move. You got to change. If I can't get the ball to them the way I did, I have to change up. I have to find some other way. I have to find some other way to create. And they didn't. Okay? They didn't. They were on their heels. Another thing, the big boy, the heavy set kid who played with Loyola when he was a freshman and now he's a senior. He played in the Final Four. They take him and let him be the point guard from the foul line to the basket. He's the distributor. He brings Kofi out. No answer. No answer. So, you have to – it's a combination of matchups. It's a combination of being too damn stubborn to change, to do some other things. You got these great players. If they can create these matchups, problems for me, I have got to counter with some matchup problems for them. And you constantly, Mark D'Antonio used to always tell me, John, the earth is moving. You better keep moving or it's going to roll over you.
You're saying that to Terry's point, that we got so locked in the Big Ten ball, bruising, strong, the big men acting like they act, that whole mentality, and the Brad Underwoods and the Tom Izzos of the world were so locked into that. When you get into these different playing styles that you may see in the ACC or the Pac-12 or wherever it may come from, they just don't know how to respond. And is that a real knock on these guys' coaching chops, that a Brad Underwood could not go on the fly, that he couldn't make the adjustments, that he don't have assistant coaches with enough background to be able to say, okay, this is what we got. And damn, what happened to the scouting report? Well, I've mentioned before, these guys get paid a lot of money, and they're not going to work at Chrysler's and then coming to practice at 3:30. They're not teaching. They're not teaching 6 classes and going on the basketball floor. This is what they do. Okay. And if I got Tsumu, all right, and they bum rush this, then I'm going to find some other place on the floor where I'm going to get him the basketball. I've seen guys take a passer and take 3 other players. You 3 players, your job is to get this sumbitch open. That's all you're going to do. And I'm going to get one guy to give him the ball. So, you can't have the Sumo and put him in that position. So with that being said, I want to talk about some of these other Big Ten teams. So we got Illinois. We kind of broke it down with them. I guess Brad was just, out of his element when it related to that. Let's talk about Iowa, for example. They went down and took a loss to Oregon. Another, we got a Pac-12 team, a different kind of style. Hope you're okay over there, John.
I am.
And before I even go there, I want to mention that assistant coach you guys got to keep an eye on over at Florida State, which is Charlton Cy Young. Charlton C.Y. Young. He's an assistant coach, man. He's known for being one of the best guys out there, and you got to just really keep an eye out there for him. So you will see him on the bench being very demonstrative. You'll see Leonard Hamilton deferring to him, and I love it when you see a well-established coach that can look to a younger guy and say, okay, tell me what you think. I'm just blown away. I love to see that because that's about empowering him, and he knows that. So that's something I want you guys to keep in mind when we watch that. But let's talk about Iowa. You know, Luka Garza, in my view, and this don't mean to be disrespectful, I think Luka Garza is overrated. And maybe I should restate that. I say, this is the best you're going to see of Luka Garza. Because the Luka Garza we hearing now, his name is not going to ring if and when he goes to the NBA. And I think it's unfair to him, all those accolades that people were raining down on him when he going to go to the next level. And I don't think he's going to have that impact. If anything, he's going to be a role player. He may be a journeyman. And people may keep him around for the sake of what's going on and whatnot. So how about I start with you got any thoughts on Luka Garza, Orlando? And we'll make John the closer. I'll go Orlando and I'll go Terry. And then we'll close with John on Iowa and Luka Garza.
I agree with you, Lindsay, on Luka. I mean, a solid player, a good player, but he's the perfect example of the hype.
Yep.
I've never seen so much media attention and so much hype pushed behind one individual player.
He reminds me of Doug McDermott. Is it Doug McDermott was a player? No, was it McDermott? Who was the guy, McBuckets, that they were talking about who played for BYU?
Oh, Jimmer Fredette.
I'm sorry, Jimmer Fredette. Exactly.
Right.
That reminds me of that kind of thing where they get rolling. But go ahead, Orlando.
Right. I mean, it's the whole thing is, and that's taking nothing away from Garza. He's a good player, and you're absolutely right. When you got all that hype behind you, and when you take that step to the next level, you know they're expecting LeBron type qualities. And you're nowhere near it. So, I mean, they actually did him a disservice.
They really did.
Do I believe he could be a journeyman in the league? Possibly. But, reading the paper, reading the press, you would think he's the next coming.
Yeah. And again, it's sad what they set him up to. I guess it's that short-sightedness. George Ward made a good point. He said so many of these high school players, their parents are so focused on the kids freshman year in high school, they're not even thinking about his freshman year in college. So they're so concerned about, Luka Garza being the man in college. Now, if you were such a man, you would think that Iowa would still be in the hunt right now. No. You know what I'm saying? Y'all at the crib. You know what I'm saying? And now you got all this going on. So, Terry, what's your thoughts?
I thought it was honestly, I think that team, I think his supporting cast is a little overrated. I feel like they gave him a ton of I believe that they gave like Westerkamp, Bohannon. I think they gave a lot of those players on the team too much credit this year. I think a lot of that was due to Garza getting so much attention in the middle while playing him. Because I mean, he's a matchup nightmare. I mean, it's hard to guard him. He will stretch you out. He'll shoot threes. You can't just camp on him. So I mean, it does allow. I think, one thing that Izzo talked about when they played Iowa the second time, it said we'd rather give up shots to other guys, but not open threes. But, Garza gets so much attention. But I think Oregon's game plan, as I watched, they were like, Garza's going to get his. But these other players aren't going to get a lick. They're not going to get anything easy. We're not going to let them settle in. We're not going to let them hit wide open shots. Bohannon and Westerkamp can shoot. Or if they can shoot all game and just stand in their little spot and just shoot all night, they'll do that. But Oregon didn't allow that. They pressured them. They forced them to dribble the ball, which I think John talked about a lot on the show, forcing them to dribble, forcing them to make moves off the dribble, and really frustrating Luka Garza. At times, I see him with his hand up trying to call for it, and they're not looking at him. They're not looking to force it in there. He's getting frustrated because he knows that no one else is really supporting him. And they're down by a lot because Oregon's running, they're scoring. It reminds me of that 2017 team with Dylan Brooks, Peyton Pritchard, and Jordan Bell. They just go out there and run. They run and shoot. They run and gun, and they play solid defense. They speed the game up. And that's been Iowa's weakness. They don't like to be sped up. They like to run their sets, get guys open with screens and make threes, and throw it in there to Luka Garza and get an easy layup or an and one. Oregon did not allow that at all, and that was, again, with the matchups. They didn't allow that. They knew that if we tire out Luka Garza, let him score 30. I bet they won't get. If he scores 30 and no one else gets higher than 10 points, I guarantee you it's a win for the other team. So Oregon did a great job executing the scouting report and really relied on those mismatches that I'm sure they saw in that game plan and on film.
Wow, great. And before I bring in John, our close on the topic again, I want to thank our sponsors, the Rachel Williams Foundation, Gilead Sciences, and Dick's Sporting Goods. And also shout out to Streets of Talking Broadcast Network. They're doing some great things. The Streets of Talking Podcast Network, Don Houston and Clarence Barbour, they're doing some awesome things. Getting more stuff. I think Memphis, Tennessee is coming on board. They're doing some awesome things. So our message is really getting out there. What I was going to say to you, John, before you came on, I wonder, there's another aspect that we can add to this: Big Ten fatigue, or a term that we can use, cannibalization, that the Big Ten really cannibalized itself by just, like Terry said earlier, beating up on each other throughout the season. People are quick to say, hey, the Big Ten is the toughest league in college basketball. So if you fighting heavyweights night in and night out, when you get to the latter part of the season, you may not have your legs. You've been going so hard so these other teams can get in there. And shout out to Dylan Brooks. I remember when Oregon made that run, and he kind of put himself on the map. And I think that allowed him to parlay himself an opportunity into the NBA right now, being with the Memphis Grizzlies. So, John, what's your take on Iowa and the whole piece with Luka Garza and them, taking an early exit like all these other Big Ten teams have?
Well, I'm not a big fan. I didn't like that team. They don't even try to guard anybody. They haven't ever since this crew's been there, and their coach permits it. And to me, he's doing them a disservice. Wieskamp is a great shooter. Bohannon is a great shooter when you don't guard him, just like Terry said. But I didn't think they were a very good team.
And speaking of that, I'm a Fran McCaffrey fan. I'll tell you why. 2 seasons ago when we were face to face, I remember we were in the press conference, and the way they was set up before they got to Zoom, you have at Michigan State, the away team would come in first, and that would be Iowa and Fran McCaffrey. And he had on some sweet double monk strap shoes, man. They were like a bluish gray, and they were sweet. I got up on it, took a good shot of it. And as Fran walked past me, Coach McCarron, I said, nice shoes, man. And he lit up. But for the most part, he's probably one of the safest coaches in America, I would think. That this little run he put on, second round in the NCAA has solidified him again. Like, is Fran McCaffrey on the hot seat? Probably not. Is Fran McCaffrey going anywhere? Probably not. He's had all kind of issues with the program, issues of inappropriate comments and all that, and you ain't never heard that. But this is a side topic, but kind of dealing with the overall topic we were talking about with Juwan. I mean, how comfortable should Fran? He's just super comfortable. He don't got nothing to worry about, I guess, huh?
I don't think he has anything to worry about. He's coming back there. He's looking.
Well, should he? Should he? By all rights and purposes, his record and what he's done, and what people can argue is always coming up short, always falling off towards the latter part of the season, never making a run. You had to know what, the National Player of the Year, and you can't even make it to the Final Four. You can't even win your conference. So what is to be said about that?
They're not going to get rid of him. They're going to keep him, and they're going to be happy with what they got, and that's why they're not going to be in contention to win Big Ten championships and make runs in NCAA tournaments. And for what he did to Roy Marble and what that program's done to Roy Marble, I think it's going to have an effect on them. I think it's going to affect them down the line. And look at who he's got on his roster. Look at his team. Look at him. Okay? And to Terry's point and to your point, I'll give you a perfect example, and I'm going to try to lay this out for you. There's a guy named Isaiah Thomas that's playing for the Pistons. They're playing at the Silverdome. When Detroit gets the ball off the defensive board, they look for Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas gets the ball, and picture this. He's zooming down the middle of the floor. He's going to the rack. So the whole defense of the NBA is frantic to keep him out of the paint. There's a kid from Notre Dame named Kelly Tripucka who runs right to the corner. That's where he does on a fast break. He runs right to the corner. He makes an all-star team, making a jump shot because no one's guarding him because they're stopping Isaiah Thomas. They trade him. You never hear of him again.
Sure not. You know what? And I grew up on Kelly Tripucka. You're absolutely right. And to make an open jump shot in the NBA, that's your job. And when he got traded, there was not another word. And you always heard Kelly Tripucka's name after Isaiah Thomas. You're absolutely right. And we thought he was a star.
It's
we
exactly
thought he was
right.
a star.
And he was just good because one guy, you protect the rim. So you get to the middle of the floor. And it left the wings open. And he ran to the corner. And Isaiah, if they stopped him, he threw it to Kelly Tripucka. He shot a jump shot. Well, this is Wieskamp, okay? This is Bohannon, all right? And these coaches in the Big Ten wanted to double team and triple team Garza. I said weeks ago on this show, watch the guy run up and down the floor. Look at him. He always looks tired. Every inch of his sole on his gym shoe touches the floor when he runs. These
So
are
he's not
things
running
I
like a
watch.
gazelle.
Every part of his shoe touches the floor. I mean, that's struggle. That's hard. It's tough on your body when you're 6'11" and you're slow. It's hard.
And you wonder what that's going to look like if to try to transition to the next level.
Well, you know what? Listen, there's how many guys on the roster? 13? They dress 13 in the NBA?
Yeah.
How many play? 8? Okay.
Yeah, right.
You could be one of them 5 guys that never gets out of his warm-ups if you want to look good in the airport. You know, and let's not leave something out. Let's be honest here. Let's not be like ESPN and the rest of them. You know, they're begging. They want white guys. They want these NBA owners. They scream for white guys.
Yeah.
They scream for them. So he's got this going in his favor.
So they can have some diversity, i.e. Grayson Allen.
Hey, you know what? Look, why do you think they're going to Europe? Because they got a market to sell all this stuff in Europe.
Luka.
You know, they want this, but I was having a conversation with Patrick. It comes time to win in the NBA, and it comes time to go to the next round, see what Luka's going to do.
Exactly.
They're going to clamp up on his ass, and he ain't going to do nothing.
Well, what'll probably happen is he'll own some property and go back to Iowa and be a financial planner, and he'll be rich. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, but you know, hey, Iowa, you know, if I got athletes, okay, I got people that can move their feet and they can move their arms and they can get in your face, okay, I'm going to shut down a team from Iowa and I'm going to embarrass them. Now, Luka Garza, you can go get your however you want. But the rest of you, I agree with Terry. You're not sniffing nothing today. You're going to have to put the ball on the floor. You're going to have to show me what you got in those guys. And this is where Fran McCaffrey should be ashamed of himself. Wieskamp is a great shooter. He has talent. Why has this boy played there 3 years and he still can't score off the dribble? What are you doing with this kid?
No development.
What do you make him do? You just sit here and he's the same player that he was when he was a freshman.
Right.
So all he can do is recruit. He can't develop.
Hey, I'm going to tell you something. You know, do you realize that when these kids play basketball at places like Iowa and at the Big Ten, do you know that when they go to practice for their team, that's the second practice of the day. They're with an assistant coach for a couple hours during the day, individually.
Yeah.
You know, hey, why can't this kid put the ball on the deck? You can't tell me that he can't be better than what he is, but he hasn't been developed. And this is the problem. This is why you see so many upsets. Oh, well, I'm going to take this kid because he's a 5-star. I'm going to take this kid because he's a 4-star. What do you do with them when you get them?
Yeah.
How did Juwan Howard get his team to the point mentally where they didn't take a second off playing defense? They're going to concentrate. They're going to do what they're told and what they're taught, and they're going to follow the tendencies, and they're going to pay attention, and they're going to and they've developed. Okay.
Yeah.
This is
that's the culture he has there.
The difference. This is
right.
the difference.
I get it. Well, keeping an eye out, what we'll do for the interest of time, we'll shoot through. We got OSU. We won't leave out OSU out, Terry. We'll do OSU and we talk about Maryland. So how about we combine those as we do our next round robin before we get to Michigan State and finish up on our last topic. We got about 15 minutes to go. So OSU and Maryland, I'll stay with you on that, John. What you thinking? And I'll go to Orlando and I'll let Terry finish off with his beloved, OSU and Maryland. What do you think about those guys and why they made the early exit?
Well, first of all, Maryland is a great job. I mean, where your school's located and the players that you got within a 3-mile drive is just unbelievable. The prep schools in Virginia, the DMV, I mean, it is loaded. And he, again, didn't have it. He has 2 good players, but that's not enough. So they weren't, their roster was not complete. So I give him a D- for this year's team. Okay. And, as far as Ohio State is concerned, I don't think this coach, I think he had a problem at the end of games. I think he
Chris Holtman.
Yeah, I think he does. I've seen him where his team, like the first time when they played Michigan on that Sunday afternoon on national TV, man, Ohio State was in rhythm. They're shooting, they're playing, they're running, they're making shots, they're in a groove. And I see him stop, slow down, stop. I didn't like that. And they never regained their momentum. Mm-hmm. You see these guys dribble on down the floor, and all of a sudden they stop, and this coach wants a different set. And I think that he had a good team that could score. I think they were a little small, but I think they could have accomplished more than. I mean, it's a tough loss to Oral Roberts. I mean, it's a tough loss. And I mean that those 2 kids, I think, had 60-some points between them. And here we go again talking about managing your team on the fly. They let 2 kids, and the one kid's the leading scorer in the country. He's about 5'11", about 150 pounds, and he let 2 guys beat him. He had 5 on the floor, and he let 2 beat him.
It happened like that. Orlando, what's your take on OSU and Maryland?
I'm just going to leave it to OSU, and I'm going to be quite honest. I think that the reason OSU kind of fell out of it, and I agree with John, is coaching. But I think the biggest reason is that they're fans, especially Terry McCord Jr. I don't think he didn't root hard enough. Hard enough for that victory.
No doubt about that.
But then you had some fans that was tripping. After they lost, they went to social media and said some foul stuff that led to some
absolutely ridiculous comments. Everything else. And Terry, I hope you weren't one of them.
Yeah, Terry, where were you on the night in question, Terry? I got to see your social media profile. You went Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. No, Terry, we love talking with you about that. So what was your take on those, Terry?
Well, Ohio State game, I'm going to focus on that one too. It was a little disappointing. I saw a team that was disinterested in playing in March Madness, having a great opportunity to make a run for a Final Four. I saw a team that, did not make the best decisions down the stretch. These are winning moments. I mean, Dwayne Washington Jr. took very questionable shots, and this is where coaching comes in again. At the end, you're tied up, and you got a chance to score. Why are we taking a step back 3-pointer? Like, put the pressure on Oral Roberts, try to get to the lane, get a foul. I mean, Washington has hit that shot, so I understand a little bit, like, this is my go-to move. But at the same time, you can get to the rim whenever you want to. I mean, Oral Roberts was not a big team. I would say size was about the same. You can get to the rim. No one's blocking your shot in there. It's a tie game. Put pressure on the defense to either foul you or get a good high percentage shot in the lane. I mean, the shot was short, so his legs weren't under him. So it's like, go get a higher shot higher percentage shot at the rim. And I just did not. I saw a lot of free throws weren't made. It just felt like they didn't take it serious. Like they didn't feel like Oral Roberts was gonna beat them. Oral Roberts, like I told Lindsay on that same day, I have to give them credit. They wanted it more. If Ohio State would have won that game, I would not have felt so sure that they should have won that game. It's like where a team deserved to win, or did they actually win? And I feel like Oral Roberts got both of them. They deserved to win, and they got the win. Ohio State deserved to get their butts sent home because they did not come to play. They didn't play any defense. They got beat by two guys, like John said. No defense was played. No defensive adjustment. It's just like they thought we were going to outscore them because we're Ohio State. That's not March Madness ball right there. You have to play like you're playing against like you're playing against a top team like a Baylor or Gonzaga. You got to always play like you're playing against these top teams. Come ready to play like you played against Illinois in the second half. Come ready to play like you played against Michigan and finish games. A lot of that has to do with coaching, making the right play calls, and give the ball to your point guard. Dwayne Washington Jr. should not be put in that position where in his mind he's thinking, I got to score. Give it to a player like CJ Walker, control the pace, get quality shots. Don't start forcing shots, and then you put yourself in a hole. I just thought it was a lot of things that they just did not feel like they just did not know what they were doing in the moment. And I feel like that's a learning curve for a young coach that's at Ohio State.
Spoken from a true Buckeye fan. I mean, I can appreciate your passion and your analysis on that. So we kind of going through the Big Ten. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Orlando.
One last thing. I know we've been working on the graphics and kind of upping the graphics and things of that nature for the show. So I had to make sure that we put the perfect graphic.
Hey, Terry, you know what? Hey, man, when you love hard, this is what happens, man. So
I mean, that's really – I mean, everybody – I mean, I speak for the fan. I mean, the fan, they should be embarrassed of themselves. People tend to forget that athletes are humans too. Everybody makes mistakes. I mean, to treat an athlete who has given his heart and soul to this program and to treat him like he's nothing, like he's trash, I think that's terrible. I think they should be ashamed of themselves. I'm ashamed being an Ohio State fan and having fellow fans do that. I honestly would say they aren't fans. They aren't a part of our fan base because that's terrible. You don't treat people like that. Anyone.
And if they are fans, those are the fans that programs don't want. We don't want to. You can keep it moving. So with the time we have, we'll talk about two other topics. One that I know we can go in for a while on, but in the interest of time, I want us to be mindful. I want to get both the issue between Thomas Izzo and Gabriel Brown. I want to discuss that, or we should call it the Tom Izzo, Aaron Henry 2.0, you know what I'm saying, situation, if you will, one way or the other. And finally, talk about our refs behaving badly. My guy, Coach Keith Guy, getting pushed by MHSSA official and the fallout from that. But halftime, Michigan State up 11 points, if I recall, against UCLA.
Yep.
It was a blown assignment. You're on it all the time, Orlando. There was a blown assignment. I think Gabe was supposed to trap. It was a situation between him and Malik. Tom wasn't happy with that. Now, some could argue, John, that Tom could have just patted Gabe on the butt, got him in the locker room and talked about it, but Tom addressed it. Because of the relationship that people have in the program, Gabe was able to express himself, which he did. But clearly, Tom wasn't happy with what went on. When Gabe walked away, he grabbed him. And I think that kind of, became eye candy. Followed him into the tunnel. Gabe turned around and, as some would say in the streets, bossed up on him because he turned and kind of flexed on Tom, whatever. And after it was all said and done, of course, Michigan State took what you call an early exit with UCLA. Can make some argue, should they even have gotten to the play-in game, or make some argument, should they even have been an 11 seed? And when Tom was addressing the issue in the press conference, he was very low-key and responded to it. And he said, after this game, this is what you want to talk about. And I want to be like, Tom, yeah, that's a big issue for what we saw, whatever or not. So what I'll do is I'll work my way around. I'll go John, Orlando, and Terry on this topic just to get you guys' thoughts on it. John, what's your take on it?
Well, when it happened, Patrick said to me, why is he so angry? Isn't he looking at the scoreboard that they're 11 points up? And then when halftime was over, UCLA scored 9 straight points and made it a basketball game. So, Coach Izzo, what did you do at halftime? what did you do? I know what the guy from UCLA did. He changed his game. He was on the fly, and he scored the first 9 points in the second half to make it a basketball game. But he had 11-point lead. So Cronin makes some adjustments and comes out smoking. And Michigan State doesn't make any adjustments, does the same damn thing that they've done all year long, and UCLA scores the first 9 points. Coaches and players get into arguments. Everybody knows Tom Izzo's MO. Just think what it's like when you're in that practice facility and there's nobody around.
So I've been there, and I've heard some stuff made me not even want to play, and I wasn't even playing.
Well, that's his style. And I'll just tell you this. I'll leave this at this. In my estimation, when I coached basketball, Robert Montgomery Knight was the greatest basketball coach
Bobby Knight
that I saw. Okay. I studied and I watched, and he used to get good players. And then by the time he was starting to move up a little bit, I was going in gyms and I was going in high schools. And Indiana was one of my states I recruited. I recruited Indiana and Ohio and up to Milwaukee, okay, in Wisconsin. So I bumped into a lot of guys. I was in a lot of gyms with a lot of guys. And it started to chatter where people were using his attitude against him when they went in the living room to recruit the same player.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to leave that at that. This the way you want to be. In 2021, you're a god. You're the highest paid person in the state of Michigan, state employee. You have at your disposal seven private jets. Not one, 7. You have a private jet to go pick up your father-in-law from the UP. Okay? If this is the way you want to act, and this is the way you want to coach, and this is what you want people talking about the day after your team plays, God rest, because he's not going anywhere. He's going to stay at Michigan State for as long as he wants to. And this weekend is going to be a big weekend for him because he's going after this kid, Tyson Walker, real hard. And he's going to make his decision Saturday. And he's got Kansas, and he's got Maryland, and he's got North Carolina. He's got everybody wants this kid. I'm just wondering if I'm on that phone with that kid and I'm going to say to him, hey, I'm going to send you something on your phone. Take a look at it, see what you think. This what you want? This how you want to be coached? And I'm telling you, it's up to him. He's a Hall of Famer. And one day when we have some time off camera, I'll tell you what he did to cultivate that. Okay? But if this is the way you want to be, because you're going to stay there. Nobody's going to fire you. Look what you brought into that university in the last month. You brought 2 mortgage guys that brought millions. He did that. So his behavior is going to be tolerated in East Lansing.
Wow,
nothing's happening to him. Is this the way you want to be? Then he's going to do what he wants to do. I'll defer to Terry or
no, I got to go to Terry because I can't let Orlando go after that. Orlando said he don't want no parts of that. So we'll let Terry go, and then Orlando. Go ahead. Great comment.
I feel like I was disappointed on both parties, I would say. Gabe, definitely should take criticism and coaching a lot better. I thought, it was the heat of the moment. It was the last shot play. Almost gave up a big shot at the end at the buzzer. No one wants to give a buzzer beater. This is a mid-switch assignment. But Gabe, you got to take coaching better. I know that, this is an environment that they have created to where you can fire back at a coach like that. But clenching up your fist at a coach, that's never acceptable in my opinion, no matter what environment you created. I think that's disrespectful. You should always respect your elders, people older than you. It's just out of respect, you know what I mean? So as a coach that has giving a lot for you, you should respect that. Now, Izzo's side, like John mentioned, I mean, these coaches like a Juwan Howard will use this as leverage. I think players see that social media is trending. That clip was trending 5 seconds after halftime started. Everyone was like, "Look at Izzo! Look at Izzo! You see that? You see Gabe and Izzo? Everybody texting, tweeting about it everywhere. Draymond hearing about it a couple minutes after it happened. It's everywhere." These recruits are going to see that and going to realize that that this may be something I don't want to get into. And I'm gonna say, I'm gonna keep it real. It's a lot different when you have a small a white man grabbing an African American like that. It does something to a player. It does something to a person.
You're talking about the optics of that look and how that looks.
And how that looks and how that will feel. You know what I mean? Like, let alone somebody grab me like a little kid, but as a black man and how that will look, it's not really the best look. But I think that's something that I think Izzo knows Gabe, so maybe he knows that Gabe reacts well to that, and he knows Aaron, and so he knew how Aaron would react to that. But I think both parties should have held their emotions a lot better, and we saw the response because they didn't obviously that outbreak didn't lead to something because they got caught in a 9-0 run. So I mean, if that would have created
good point,
positive juice, I would have been like, okay, that's an Izzo moment. But I knew this wasn't a typical Izzo moment because it didn't lead to something. It led to more negativity and a loss.
Yeah, very good, Terry. Very well put. Orlando, what you got?
Now I don't want to follow Terry anymore. No, it's a point, and I have to agree with Terry. Social media is poisonous. It's a point that you're taking something that normally wouldn't have got that exposure, and it's just another day in basketball. And then for me, and we talking to the man right here, Lindsay. Maybe it's that time for us to really focus, and I think it's beyond that time on sports psychology solutions. To really how to handle these moments, because Izzo is going to be Izzo, and it comes from both ends. It comes to you have an entire generation of kids that don't necessarily respect their elders the way they should. May not have that father figure in a home. And really have a problem with male authority. And on the other end, you have your older coaches that are dealing with this that don't know how to quite handle it. In years past, you could grab a kid. I mean, even coaching at the high school level, there were years I could scream, yell, kick chairs, whatever, and I would get an instant response. Nowadays, and I'm telling you, through the season I've had this year, no matter what I did, I could have grabbed, screamed, kicked, whatever. They just don't care.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that piece where there's some work that needs to be done. But I agree with John. Izzo is a legend. Izzo will leave when he wants to leave, and that's just the bottom line.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was an unfortunate incident, tremendously bad optics, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I agree, man. Great comments from all you guys. I'll just say this, man. I'm very fortunate. I appreciate the relationship I've been able to develop with Coach Izzo. And ironically, the core of our relationship is on this topic. Our relationship really came out of how am I going to deal with coaching this generation of athletes? And that will be our back and forth. Back before COVID, I would be in the Breslin. We would be on the sideline talking and going back and forth, and him respecting my thoughts and the things I was trying to bring with him. But it was funny because when I started talking to him about it, it was kind of out there, a little left field at first. But as things started happening and trending, it became more and more relevant. So now, I guess if I saw him today and we talk, it'll be something we'll talk about. But here's my only question I would have for Tom. I said, Tom, what do you want to do with your remaining time at Michigan State? What do you want to do? Who do you want to recruit? What do you want to achieve? And based on his answer, that will determine what he has to look at doing next. Now, I'll tell you this, from that Aaron Henry situation, he has been on eggshells. That has been the one thing that has made him second guess, made him rethink. And a lion is never going to lose, leopard's never going to lose his spots. So at the end of the day, when he felt a certain kind of way, he responded like that. So here's my thing. I totally agree. He ain't going nowhere. He ain't going nowhere. That's not even a question. but I do think he's concerned with his legacy. Now, his legacy on the front is a national championship, Mr. March, all those Final Fours. But for the remaining time that he spends coaching Michigan State basketball, I think he would be receptive to what he may need to do because, to Terry's point, up 11, you got on Gabe, it didn't give you the results you wanted. Like John said, 9-0 run. So that's my thought on that. So with that being said, I think the question remains is really going to be a question about what he does with this new recruiting class that comes in, how people stay locked in. For example, Bayako, who was going to be coming in from Canada, I hear is going to be going to Arizona State. That's somebody he lost a couple weeks ago. John, you may remember that.
Yes, I do.
So you're seeing the results and what's going on. Mimi, you can't hide. We see you. She tried to be a ghost and hide. Bless your heart, Mimi. I love you to death. But anyway, I see your hand come. But what else? We'll transition on this topic with the few minutes that we have. Let's talk about referees behaving badly. And we'll start with Orlando Watkins. We'll go to John, and we'll finish with Terry. Keith Guy, head coach of Muskegon. Oh, God. Oh, look at you, Terry. Orlando, was you there? Was you there to take the picture?
Wasn't there.
So he got pushed, man, and it was no question. It became an emotional thing. Keith Guy is a good dude, man. I like to rock with Keith Guy, man. So you got this referee pushing somebody. MHSA got on it. I got to give them credit. They didn't mess around. They suspended him for the rest of the season. And I believe the Muskegon County prosecutor is looking at bringing charges. So they're not playing with it. They're getting right to it. John, what's your take on that?
Well, no matter what the serve, you keep your hands off. I mean, this just wrong, and it's not an easy.
You a former ref? You ever want to put your hands on somebody? You ever felt like you want to put your hands on somebody?
Well, I can remember refereeing in the Detroit Public School League with the legendary Ernie Winchester, and we were at Murray Wright, and I was refereeing Murray Wright and Northwestern, and it was an unusually warm day, and a kid came out of the stands. They had the doors open, and I was standing on the sideline during a timeout, and a kid came up and hit me in the head, slapped me in the back of the head, and I didn't budge. I didn't move, and Ernie Winchester came over, and they told the kid to stay in the stands and keep your hands to yourself. So, I mean, I've been in situations where there's been fights in high school basketball games with coaches and a referee. I actually saw a fist fight, and nothing happened to either the coach or the referee. But times have changed, and things are different, and you keep your hands to yourself.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Orlando. I played you, man. I was supposed to let you go first on that, but I'll swing back to you real quick. That's my mistake.
I guess I do what I got to do. Ernie Winchester, the gun. I never.
Yeah, my man.
He used to ref my game summer league.
What they call him, the gun?
You know, I have no idea.
Winchester. His last
name.
Okay, there it is. I never even put it together.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I bet people listen like that's easy. That's obvious. We're right.
Yeah, no, it's not that obvious. At least not to me. But I remember summer league, and I used to be screaming at Winchester. Call a foul, and he come back by the bench and whisper to me, "Tell your girls to go to the hole harder, and maybe I'll call one."
Ooh.
So the referee thing is, that situation with coach, and I actually, pulled some notes. I mean, it wasn't just the implication that the referee pushed him. I want to say it cost him the game. The Muskegon trailed by 3 points and had the ball with 25 seconds left when this occurred. And when the referee pushed him, he gave him a technical foul.
He gave him a tech.
Gave him a tech, sending the other team to the line in possession of the ball. And I don't know, we don't have the video, but I'm everyone that's out here listening, search out the video. Search out the interview that they gave him afterwards and how emotional he was.
Oh, yeah, he was very emotional. Keith Guy was.
Right. It's uncalled for, and I'm glad MHSAA for once did something right. They
And
suspended.
they got on
him
it quickly too, don't you think?
They got it on extremely quick, and they should never let this guy ref again. It was, to me, Coach didn't want to come out and say it, and I've met Coach before.
Yeah.
Nice guy.
Sharp. Yep.
They did not want him to win. He won't come out and say it. I'll come out and say it. And you get into that type of environment, and I've had games, and I know John has seen it. We've all seen it, where you've got those referees that when they're on you, they know what they're going to do. We don't want you to win. You're not going to win. They've made the decision who's going to win a long time ago. I've played in tournaments where the first game we beat a team by 30 points. The second game, we get the same set of refs. This is tournament play, and every game from there on out, we have the same set of refs, and we don't win another game. I've had technical fouls called on me for something somebody said in the stands.
Wow.
So it needs to be cleaned up, and I feel for him. And like I said, you'll rarely ever hear me say this. MHSA did a good job.
We got you on record.
You got me on record saying it. Probably the last time I said, but you did a good job.
Let's hope not.
To address that situation, but it still does not, help Coach, because they took that game away from him.
Yeah. Whether he gets a lifetime ban, he definitely shouldn't be able to coach referee any more of their games. So that's going to take some kind of follow up to make sure, because that's not good that somebody that you had that kind of situation was there. And then I think it also, as I get ready to go to Terry, it hurts the argument that people are trying to make, meaning they're out here trying to say, hey, man, we need these parents to behave a certain way, and you got a ref putting hands on an official. Terry, what you think?
Yeah, well, I think about the referee's job is to control the game, and I think the referee lost control of that game. Whether it was like a bad call or it just emotions were too high, I feel like the referee definitely lost control of that game. But it's the way you control the game. I think there's a respect that a coach needs to have for the ref, which I didn't see the coach lose at all while talking to him. And then there's a respect that the referee has to have for the coach. It's a direct relationship. If a referee's not really liking the attitude from the coach has to straighten up so it doesn't negatively impact his team. So I think this is something where it's like reffing nowadays. It's so it's like they get so obsessed of wanting to be dominant and wanting to control the game, but it's just the way you do it. I mean, I've had refs, and I've been blessed to have some really good referees. Except for when I go to Indiana and Spies, I can't stand the refs out there. But the refs around here in Lansing, a lot of times. I've came off myself. I was playing really aggressive defense, and he talked to me about my hands. He was talking about no hands, no hands. A lot of times, and this is back when I was young, I was emotional. I was like, I didn't even touch him. I didn't even foul him. And the ref pulled me aside, and he was like, look, man, your hands. Like, you touching them with your hands. And that's what I knew about the hand checking thing. And I started to clean up my defense a little bit that young. But I was like, when refs really understand the perspective of the player, the coach, in that heat of the moment at the time, that's why I feel like referees separate themselves. And you have some really good referees that really want to see the game of basketball played the right way. They're respecting the game. It's not all about, this is my game, I control this game. No, everybody's in here, everyone's having fun. This is a game where I'm having fun reffing, or he's having fun coaching, and they're having fun playing. It's just a way to respect the game as a whole. You want to see positive relationships. And two, keep your hands off each other, man. Have respect for the human being, and don't put your hands on them. It's simple.
And for our listeners to know, the prosecutor has gotten involved. This is not just don't touch me. MHSA is done with it. It's going to the next level, and legal action is going to be taken. And you only hope that can get cleaned up as well. So with that, we're at the end of the show. Wow, we got to get through all these great topics. I want to thank John, the insider, Coach Orlando, Watkins, of course, Terry McCord Jr. doing a great job. You guys have made this a great show as always. We can watch some more NCAA basketball coming up soon. Also want to thank our sponsors, the Rachel Williams Foundation, Gilead Sciences, and Dick's Sporting Good. as well as the Streets Are Talking Podcast Network. Shout out to Don Houston and Clarence Barbosa. With that, I want to sign off on behalf of our great panel. I appreciate you guys out there listening. Aaron Mays, I know you're checking us out too. Appreciate you. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.